Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Geek-Minded Fools. My name's Graham.
And I'm Scott.
As usual, we'll kick off with a visit to the monkey farm.
Hey, partners, it's time to see what Scott's doing down on his monkey farm.
Welcome, sir, once again into my monkey farm. How are you? You well?
I'm very well. Thank you for asking. Thank you for inviting me.
It's alright, let's just get the niceties out of the way.
Yeah.
As always, hands by your sides.
Yeah.
And as I always say to you, look with your eyes, not with your hands.
Is the straitjacket really necessary?
It's not necessary, but it does rather turn me on, so you will be wearing that from
Okay.
here on in.
Fair enough.
Right, sir, what have we got in the news for you this week? We've got a little bit of Batman, Superman news.
Oh, okay.
What are they calling it? Batman v Superman,
Dawn of Justice.
Even I'm getting a bit impatient now. Just fucking release it. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. We've got a bit of Christopher Nolan news. We got some news that you're going to like regarding the killing of giants.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And there's a couple of other little bits and bobs that I'm going to pepper in there for your listening pleasure, sir. Pepperation, indeed. First off the bat, Warner Brothers apparently have requested that there is more Batman in Dawn of Justice.
Okay.
So more Batman as opposed to, an equal smattering of Batman and Superman. Evidently, Affleck has stepped well and truly up to the plate and he's knocking it out of the park.
So it seems, yes. So much so that Man of Steel 2 is now officially shelved for the time being, isn't it? Batman is very much going to be their focus.
Yeah, indeed.
With him, what was it? He's directing the next one. He signed on for 3. So.
Yeah, I like that. I tell you what, when they announced Affleck as Batman, I didn't have that kind of, oh no, Affleck as Batman.
You and I never had a problem with it, did we? It was
I like Affleck.
Yeah. I
really do like Affleck. I don't know, but there's a lot of people kind of who dislike him. But I mean, ever since that moment in Mallrats with him bearing down on Trish the Dish, saying "Call me Donnie," I've just loved him from here on in. Yeah, less said about that, the better, I suppose.
Yes,
really,
indeed.
my love of that scene. But yeah, so Warner Brothers wanting more Bat for their buck. So I'm happy with that. I'm really happy with that because we both loved the trailer, didn't we, to the new movie, and we liked the Bat that we saw in it.
Absolutely, it's huge. It looks like a massive film, and one thing you have to praise DC / Warner Brothers for is the fact that they have been building up to this. Very rarely do you get so much hype and so much exposure a whole year before the film comes out. And apparently they had a screening at the Warner Brothers studio and it got a standing ovation. So the fact that the movie is actually finished and ready to show to people a year before it's due to hit the cinemas. Obviously it was due to come out this year and they decided to hold it due to Avengers Age of Ultron.
Wise move.
But of course what it's going to have next year is Captain America Civil War to go up against. But I think the way they've played it, there can be no doubt that Batman vs Superman will be the winner of that one, and people are already saying that it could be the highest grossing movie of all time. The anticipation for it is that great. Yeah.
Which spinning off of that little bit of news, it's quite interesting to hear what Spielberg has been saying of late. He's basically he's touting the decline of the superhero movie, isn't he? And he's basically saying that it's going to go the same way that the Western went. I can't really see it. I don't think you can compare the Western genre to the superhero movie genre.
Well, funny enough, I think people are saying that because people expect X-Men, people expect Spider-Man, people expect Fantastic Four. They're the big comic names. Yeah. Suddenly you bring out a film about Ant-Man, who is such a Z-list character that most people probably wouldn't have even heard of him. And so I think people are suddenly saying, oh my God, they're scraping the bottom of the barrel, whereas of course they aren't. What they're doing is taking characters like Ant-Man and also Guardians of the Galaxy, your lesser ones, and because they aren't your high-profile ones, you're able to have a bit more fun with them. The film can be more jokey, but also you can take more risks with it. Yeah. And the funny thing is, I've seen on Facebook a great many people say that Ant-Man is their favourite of the Marvel movies.
It is a fabulous film. I wonder how successful it would have been, however, had Paul Rudd not been playing the lead. If they'd have just got kind of a newbie actor in there to play the Ant-Man character. Yeah. I think a lot of it has got to do with Paul Rudd, and he is brilliant in it. Yeah. As is the rest of the cast, obviously. But yeah, I liked Ant-Man as well. Let's move on.
Okay.
Let's move on. I feel we've dwelled a little bit too much on that. And I can see you're getting itchy in your straitjacket.
I'm fine. I'll have a bit of dwellage.
All right. Okay. Well, let's carry on because I have more news. Christopher Nolan He of the amazing Bat trilogy,
yes.
and obviously, he has done some other things that were worth
other
mentioning.
Little bits, yeah.
Memento, a couple of other bits.
Interstellar.
Some other stuff. But it looks like he is set to present to us something that I'll be excited about. I don't think you will be as excited, but a trilogy of Akira films.
Ooh.
I know, but I mean, the fact of the matter is...
Live action, yeah. Because they've been talking about a live-action Akira film for years, haven't they?
2002,
There's been so many names attached to the live-action Akira film.
Yeah, I mean, Keanu Reeves at one point was kind of the big name to do it, and it was like, really? Even though, I must admit, I saw John Wick with Keanu Reeves, and I really liked it. It was a really great comeback, but to have him kind of...
DiCaprio was on board at one point.
He was, indeed. I think this is a good idea. If anyone can do it and realise it well, I think it's going to be Nolan. Whether or not he'll be... I don't think he'll take on directorial duties at all. I think he's going to just produce the trilogy. At least one of them, anyway. But I, for one, certainly quite excited about an R-rated cyberpunk franchise from Warner Brothers. I think that would be a good idea.
It is funny, isn't it? Because... being a co-host of a podcast called Geek-Minded Fools, I'm definitely starting to come across as more of a grumpy git, because I would say for everything that I go, oh yes, wow, that's fantastic, there's something that I go, utter shit, don't want to know it, don't care about this, don't care about that. I am just Mr. Grump, aren't I?
You are a little bit grumpathon of sometimes, yeah, I'll give you that, but...
The stuff I love, I really love, but the stuff I hate, goddamn, I hate it.
That's not a problem. Well, you're going to like this next bit of news,
Oh, okay.
Because this is about something that I have still not read, but I'm dying to read, and I know you absolutely love it. I believe you mentioned it as a quick hit, possibly in this podcast, maybe in our previous podcast.
It was in the previous one. I actually quite liked it. This was on one of my quick hits.
Yeah, there you go. This was a little book called I Killed Giants by... You're going to have to remind me of the author, because...
Joe Kelly.
Okay.
Written by Joe Kelly.
So obviously this has gone the way that most interesting properties of its type go, and it's going to get made into a film.
Fantastic.
So they've just released a couple of bits of casting news. Again, you're going to have to help me out with the pronunciation of these names, because I'm a little bit unsure, but there's a character called Mrs. Mollet. I think it's Mollet, because it has a hyphen on the end of the E, who is going to be played by the absolutely stunningly beautiful Zoe Saldana.
Yes, now that is the psychiatrist, which is a critical role within the book, because, just to give you a recap, the book is about a young girl who effectively fights giants. She owns this hammer, this magical hammer, and she uses it to fight giants, and that is basically the story. But what you have to realise is there's a certain amount of the book that is factual, and of course some of it is happening in her head, but you're not quite sure which is which. And the key part is, or one of the key parts is the psychiatrist, which is the person the young girl has to go and see, and probably the only one who really she trusts. And it's this who sort of helps her establish what the reality of her life is.
Okay, and said little girl has also been cast. This is Barbara, is the character? Is this correct? Yeah, she's going to be played by a young lady called Madison Wolfe, who hasn't done a great... Well, I say she hasn't done a great deal. She hasn't done a great deal I've seen, but she was actually the little girl in True Detective. If you watch True Detective.
I only watched the first episode of season 1, and I have to say I found it a bit slow and didn't stick with it.
See, now I watched the whole of True Detective in one night.
Okay.
And I found it absolutely amazing up until the final episode. The final episode was a bit of a letdown, but that's not to say people shouldn't watch it, because it is bloody good. I'm yet to dig into the second season, but we'll see. I have got one little final other bit of news, which is more a shameless plug with some news attached to it as well, but this is regarding Trick or Treat. Remember Trick or Treat?
The movie
came out in 2009, which we both loved, didn't we?
We did, yes. I had the comic book adaptation of it as well.
Oh, I'd like to read that. I would love to read that. This was directed by a chap called Michael Dougherty, in 2009, and word is out that he has got a sequel in the works.
What's the little pumpkinhead kid's name?
I can never remember. Sam?
Something like that.
I think it's
can't
Sam.
remember.
We'll look into that and I'll get back to you. But the reason this news has arisen is more from the fact that he has got another movie coming out called The Krampus.
Yes.
Which I have now seen the trailer for, and I tell you what, this was a bit of a time machine style trailer for me. It transported me back to, when I first remember seeing the trailer for things like Gremlins and like the Joe Dante flicks. This looks like a bloody good movie. Yeah. Watch the trailer if you get a chance. I know I've sprung this on you. Normally I would say to you, watch the trailer before, but it is such a fun trailer. It looks shit scary, but at the same time, it's got that whole, as I say, Joe Dante vibe to it. So look out for the Krampus. It's a Christmas movie with a bit of an alternate take as to who's going to be coming down the chimney on Christmas Eve.
Indeed.
Looks very good. I think, sir, that's pretty much all I've got for you this week.
Enjoyed it.
Did you like that?
Yes.
All right.
Better than last week's.
Well, did you really like it? Much better than last week's, really?
Yes.
Yeah? Oh, okay, fair enough. This is why I keep you in the fucking straitjacket for comments like that.
Well,
you're going to do the rest of the episode in the straitjacket now, you know that, don't you?
Well, I'm starting to enjoy it.
Oh, fine. Don't come running to me when you want your balls itch. I'd say get out, but I'm going to leave you in here tonight. I'm locking up.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And now we should move on to this week's Quick Hits.
Quick Hits.
And I believe we shall begin with you.
Excellent, sir. My quick hit this week is something that I've been delving into over the past week or two, called Mad Max.
Ah.
In the computer game world, sir.
Don't get your controller stuff.
I've got like a controller on the PS4s, and it is well good and stuff. Avalanche Studios and Warner Brothers have basically finally given us a Mad Max game. I think the last Mad Max game I remember existing was probably on the Super NES or something like that. Bizarrely enough, this game is pretty similar to that game, but it just looks fucking amazing.
Based on the film or just set in the world of the film?
Set in the world of the film. You've got the War Boys are in there. You've got, it's the look of the bad guys in this particular game, very much taken from Fury Road.
Okay.
So you've got the talc covered kind of War Boys, and there's lots of reference to the cars and the building of the cars and how they're why they are such an important thing in the world that has now become the apocalyptic wasteland.
Okay.
It is just a corkingly good game. It really is. It's the same combat system that they used for, or a similar combat system that they used for the Batman games.
Okay.
So you've got the lots of impetus on the melee fighting and parry and things like that. Looks stunning. Opens up with you, very much like in Fury Road the movie.
Is it sandbox or story driven?
It is a sandbox, yeah, it's a sandbox game. And it is a big game as well. It's got a big map. I think, obviously, ever since GTA 5 came out...
Sorry, I don't wish to speak down to our listeners, but for those of you who don't know what I just said, sandbox is effectively a game where you have a story running through it, but you can run off all over the place. You don't literally follow the path of the story, but story driven you do. So apologies if I'm teaching you to suck eggs, but I suddenly realised that I said something that some of you may go, what?
There's a massive heavy emphasis on vehicular combat in this.
Nice.
Which is cool because, you don't get that in GTA. You can drive cars, obviously, but you're not using those as your weapons as such. But in this, you get to build the ultimate car, which is referred to as the magnum opus. You kind of come across a character called Chumbucket, who saves you from the wasteland as you and your dog. And he takes you in, and he kind of, in order to save his own skin, he offers to build you this magnum opus. The opening of the game, very much like the opening of the previous film, Fury Road, we unfortunately lose the Interceptor. So therefore, he's left on foot, bloodied and damaged, and on his last shotgun shell kind of thing. It is a really
pretty much a Friday night out for you.
Pretty much a Friday night out for me. Yeah. The whole look of the game, the wasteland looks beautiful. The cars all look beautiful. The villains of the piece, each one I've met so far has been progressively more disturbing and more scary to face off against. But I think for me, one of the biggest, coolest things about the game is you'll just be roaming about in the wasteland in your car, and all of a sudden these dust storms just come out of nowhere, and there's nowhere you can kind of hide from them in one of your bases. But if you're stuck out in your car, it just blows all this debris at you, and there's things hitting your car. You can't get out of the car, otherwise you'll just get swept off. It's just a really good looking game. Anyone who's a Mad Max fan who owns a PS4 or one of those other consoles, which I'm not going to name because why would I? Go and get Mad Max. It's a bloody good game. It faced off against the most recent Metal Gear Solid game, the Phantom Pain, which I kind of had to weigh up which one of these I wanted, because I haven't got very much money at the moment, and I managed to trade in my other games and get this for very, very cheap. So I had to kind of weigh up, do I go Mad Max or do I go for Metal Gear? Metal Gear I kind of felt was going to I will enjoy it when I eventually play it, but there's such an emphasis on stealth in Metal Gear. I wanted to be all-out wasteland.
I can't believe
survivor.
there was even a decision needed to be made by you on that front.
It was a very easy decision, let's put it that way.
Any input from George Miller in this game, story-wise or anything?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, you can see he's had a hand in it, but you can see obviously they've been very, very loyal to the stories and very, very loyal to the characters. And the nicest thing is as well, they've got some really good voice actors in there. Max is Australian, so that's nice.
Cool.
It's a good game.
And actually sounding Australian.
He does actually sound Australian. I have read...
Not like the film, then.
Not like the film, no. I have read some reviews where people have kind of been a bit down on the voice acting, but I think it's perfectly passable. I think it's pretty good, really, for a game, anyway. Anyone who wants to try their hand at being Mad Max, go and grab it. It's worth a go.
Excellent. Right. Now... You and I have known each other nearly 20 years.
We have.
You know an awful lot about me and the stuff I like and the various things, my passions in life.
Indeed I do.
One thing I don't think I've ever told you about or spoken to you about is my interest in climbing, as in mountain climbing.
No, you've never told me this.
It also isn't something that I've ever done myself, and nor would I. I'm afraid of heights and too much of a coward. But... one thing that's always intrigued me is stories of mountain climbing when things go wrong. And I've always been a big fan of books about it. My favourite one is Into Thin Air by John Krakauer, about an attempt to climb Everest that ended in disaster, that he was actually part of the team. He's obviously the guy who wrote Into the Wild.
Oh, okay.
But there's other books as well, things like Dark Summit and High Crimes, things like that, which is all about when mountain climbing goes wrong. And following from that line, my quick hit this week is a documentary called The Summit, which I watched on television. It came out in 2012, and I'm pretty sure it very quickly went on the television, because I can remember watching it on television, but I was flicking through Netflix the other day and saw a film called The Summit and thought, well, that sounds interesting, and started to watch it, and about 2 or 3 minutes in realised that I'd watched it again and thought, oh, I've seen this, and sort of went to stop, but kind of got hooked in and watched the whole bloody thing again. And it is a fantastic documentary. As I say, it came out in 2012, directed by a guy called Nick Ryan. What it tells the story of is an attempt to scale to the summit of K2 in August 2008. Obviously, K2 is the second highest peak in the world in the Himalayas. But this attempt ended in disaster because 11 people died, which makes it one of the worst catastrophes in climbing history. The documentary is told in 3 parts. It's done part talking heads, which is the survivors, the people who were there talking about the experience and what happened. Part of it is a fictionalised recreation, whereby you've actually got sort of people playing the parts of the climbers. You could actually see what's happening as it happened. But part of it is actual film that was taken at the time, because...
I bet that's hard to watch.
Well, it isn't that bad. It basically shows the situations. It doesn't show any of the deaths. The deaths are all very much part of the recreation. But apparently one of the climbers wanted to make a documentary about him getting to the summit. So he had all his cameras there. And so therefore a lot of the stuff is actual genuine footage from the time. But he decided not to make the documentary because he actually didn't make it to the summit in the end. But basically it tells a story. There's several teams that attempt the summit, and a lot of them make it. But what there's this thing called the dead zone, which is apparently above 8,000 metres. The air is so thin that you need oxygen.
Right, yeah.
And if you're up there too long, basically your brain swells and you can get disorientated. It's hard to breathe. The oxygen isn't pumping around your muscles, therefore you get very tired very quickly. And therefore you aren't supposed to spend too long in the death zone. And what happened is that they went up, and due to various delays, due to the fact that the guys who were laying the lines out started laying them out too quickly, and so there were lines sort of obviously fixed ropes that were too low, and they ran out of ropes, so they had to go back and get the previous ones and move them up. So they were moving up much slower than they intended to, and they got to the summit quite late. In fact, there's a great shot of the shadow of K2 being sort of thrown into China, but of course that means that the sun was directly behind them and on its way down, so it started to get dark as they were going down, and obviously at night things are a bit more unstable. And what happens is there is an ice fall that immediately not only kills one of the guys but cuts all their fixed lines, which means the rest of them don't have a fixed way down. And it's mentioned many times in the documentary that most people mountain climbing die going down, not going up, because not only do they relax because they think, well, I've done it, I've got there, but they're exhausted. Yeah. And that's when bad stuff starts to happen. And it is compelling viewing. It focuses mainly on an Irish climber called Ger McDonnell, and also a guy called Pemba Gyalgi, who was a Sherpa. Those are sort of the two main characters that they follow on, and one of them makes it, one of them doesn't. And it is just a brilliant film about an absolute tragedy, but how things like that can happen so easily. And they went there, they'd been there for months, they'd planned, they'd established all the camps all the way up. But it just goes to show that if somebody takes their eye off the ball, or if it isn't organised precisely, and the trouble is, there's so many stories about what happened up there that even now there isn't a definitive event of why certain people died and what happened to them, because some people are saying, oh, they did this, and somebody else is saying, well, they did that. And so, the thing about the documentary is, we will never know the full story, but it gets as close to it as it possibly could do.
Still somewhat of a mystery.
Absolutely.
But I can see you just scanning through a little bit of information about it. It did extraordinarily well, didn't it? It won Best Mountaineering Film and Festival Grand Prize in 2014 at the Vancouver International Mountain Film Festival. Yeah. So, obviously a good bit of doc.
It is a very good documentary. It's 90 minutes long, but as I say, absolutely compelling viewing. Very, very well made and telling a tragic story, but just an amazing achievement for these guys. And there's somebody on there whose spouse was one of the people who died, so obviously it's very emotional for them to be looking back in it and talking about it. And yeah, a great documentary. So that's
I'm very much like you as well. I'm absolutely petrified of heights, but I really enjoy watching things like that. I really like Touching the Void.
Yes,
that was great.
Indeed,
that was a really good documentary. So that's one I'll try and have a look for that one to see if I can watch that.
As I say, it's on Netflix, The Summit. So yeah, give it a go. Right, and now we shall move on to this week's main topic.
When they got the ball, they won't drop it. The Geek-Minded fools discuss the main topic. Right, for this week's main topic, we wanted to have a chat about some comics we've been reading, stroke enjoying of late.
Which is something we don't do enough.
No.
And I apologise to you for that, because we normally end up talking about either films or games and things like that, and we should try and encompass more of the comic book world, because I don't read as much as you do. But I'll tell you what we're going to talk about this week. Oh, it was exciting.
It's good, isn't it? It's good.
It is good.
A few episodes ago, we reviewed the movie Mad Max Fury Road, and obviously one of my major criticisms of it was that there wasn't enough plot and characterisation. It was a bit too actiony and a bit too Route One for my liking. As I said, when it comes to any medium, I enjoy a believable but a substantial plot and good characterisation. And so I was quite excited when I saw that they were bringing out Mad Max Fury Road comics. 4 in total, starting with Nux and Immortan Joe, then moving on to Furiosa, and then a 2-part Max story. And these absolutely flew off the shelves. I think they were very much under-ordered. I obviously sort of tipped that to you and said, look, these are coming out, grab them. And I don't think you did.
No, of course I didn't.
But yeah, they literally, within a week of them coming out, and they were, £3.25 comics, they were going for at least a tenner on eBay within a week of coming out. They flew off the shelves, and I think people were quite surprised by them. Published by DC Vertigo, which is obviously the adult DC branch. But yeah, what did you think?
Absolutely loved them. I just thought they were brilliant. Now, I'm just going to touch on something you said a second ago regarding the film. You felt there wasn't enough of a backstory there and not enough of a character kind of
obviously
growth.
We know about Max.
Yeah.
But certainly, my major quibble was the fact that there was no explanation as to why Furiosa, being one of Immortan Joe's biggest sort of
warriors,
enforcers, call it what you will, why she suddenly turned on him and decided to steal all the girls from him.
Indeed.
And obviously, this does exactly what I wanted it to do.
Yeah, it does, and it does it so brilliantly. I mean, I'm not going to. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there is a particular part in the Max issues, the parts 1 and 2. There's a particular part in that which just absolutely blew me away. And was equally as good as anything I would have seen on screen, I think. And I genuinely mean that. This first time in a long time I've been blown away by a comic. I really do mean that. I think obviously a lot of it's got to do with the fact that I do love the character, and I do love the world, and I do love the whole look of the Mad Max kind of franchise. But yeah, they didn't skimp on this, did they?
Absolutely not. And should point out, all 4 issues written by George Miller.
Yeah.
So this is his vision. And I would say the only thing that maybe disappointed me about them was I wish he'd put some of this in the film, because I think it would have made for a better film, because what he's done is effectively made an all-out balls-to-the-wall action film and then fleshed it out in comic book form. And as I say, for somebody like me who does enjoy an understandable plot, the film would have meant a lot more to me had some of this been in it, had some of the history and characterisation been explained and explored.
I think his initial goal was to release a movie that was, or a short animated piece, wasn't it?
Was it? Okay.
Before Fury Road came out, which was just going to be called Furiosa.
Right.
Which I'm pretty sure would have encompassed all the stuff that we've seen in these 4 books. But that never actually came to fruition in the end, unfortunately. I think probably budget-wise they couldn't do it. But
sure.
as I say, I'm pretty sure that everything he would have wanted to have been in that short animated movie is in this. Should we take this 1 issue at a time?
Yes. So
as you say,
let's start with the first. I mean, they do
Joe.
run in order. There's a very loose thread that runs through them all.
Yeah.
And what I should point out to listeners who are maybe thinking, well, why are you telling us about books that cost an absolute arm and a leg? They have all been collected in a trade paperback that you can pick up most places for about 10, 11 quid.
Yeah.
So you can get all 4 issues together. And we do recommend you do that.
And don't make the mistake I made and read them in the absolutely, completely wrong order.
The reverse
I
order.
read them backwards.
You did.
It doesn't really kill it at all. It doesn't make a great deal of difference.
But you do get a sense of flow by actually picking them up in the order they were published.
Yeah,
yes.
indeed. So the first issue, as you say, Nux and Immortan Joe, we open up, we find out basically where Nux has come from. Nux being the character played by Nicholas Hoult in the film.
What a lovely day!
Him indeed. So there's plenty of that going on, and there's plenty more reference to how the language has evolved, or devolved, if you like, in the apocalypse, in the apocalyptic wasteland that is in the Mad Max films, which I absolutely love. I love things like that. I love the opening frame of this is we've got kind of a guy who is covered completely head to toe in just little tiny etchings, and if you look very closely at some of his etchings, he's got things like Monty Python and Larry Curly Moe and things like that, and E equals MC squared.
He is the link between them all, isn't he? Because he is the storyteller. Effectively, the 4 books are all stories that are told by him. It's him telling the stories, and then you see the stories in flashback form. That's
right. Imagine if if it's easier for you guys at home to imagine it. Remember the scene in Return of the Jedi with C-3PO telling all the Ewoks the story? Tarontogosh! It's very much that kind of thing, isn't it? Boom! Yeah, all that. Apart from it's not an annoying Anthony Daniels voiced gold robot. But yeah, they very much make a big thing about the devolution, again, if you like, of language in this. It's beautifully drawn. It's beautifully put together all round. And the nicest thing about it is, if you have seen the film, even if you're not really into comics, you can read this and you can go, oh, I remember that little part there from the film.
Absolutely.
And you can kind of make the links.
Yes.
I think that's what makes this probably one of the most enjoyable comics I've read in a long time.
Good.
Just purely for the fact that, because it's such a sparse world, there's not a great deal you can do with just sand, metal, and cars, and a lack of water and petroleum, is there? Yeah. But the sheer amount that he does manage to do with this in what's a relatively short comic is amazing.
Yeah.
So as I say, I mean, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, we meet Nux as a very small child, and we realise that he's one of these.
As Scott said, a very small child. He put his hands as if he was holding a baby. Then
did I look like the black and white Athena poster? Do you remember? I'm trying to bring those back. Do you remember the Athena posters?
I do remember.
I'm trying to bring those back, and I think if anyone's listening from Athena, if Athena are still actually very much in business, which I doubt they are, I'd like to put myself forward.
Well, I would prefer if you would put down that tennis racket and stop scratching your arse and get on with recording the podcast, if you don't mind.
All right, let me just pull my pants back on. Oh gosh, you're such a killjoy. So Nux is drawn into the world of the war boys, if you like, by being, basically a feisty little bastard.
Yes,
and hanging on for dear life onto that platform. For those of you who've seen the film that raises up, that they obviously lower down in order to pick out what they will refer to as either breeders or milkers, which are effectively just women who they can use to kind of carry on the male lineage, if you like. The war boys all take to him, don't they? And they basically bond with him, and it's got the lovely scene as we get towards the final part of Nux's story, with him surrounded by all the other war boys and Immortan Joe in the background there just saying "Daddy loves you," which is the one thing you don't get in the film, which, you know, if you're a relatively intelligent person you could probably work out, but you don't really understand what their motivation is as war boys. You don't understand why they're doing what they do.
Absolutely.
He gets them from an early age, doesn't he? And he trains them up, and trains them up. He just toughens them up and sends them out as his war boys, as what he calls his armada of cars, to just basically fight, pillage, and bring things back for him. They are promised in a very, very, I think, in a very, very, a very odd kind of turn of events. They are given a promise much like today's terrorists are given, aren't they?
Eternal life.
And, you know, what are all these? I know this is probably going to be very un-PC of me, but I've just referred to them as the terrorists, but, you know, they're promised these the 12 Vestal Virgins,
72 virgins,
all that nonsense. But, you know, they're promised that they're
going to Valhalla, moving on to Valhalla and that, and therefore death is actually something to be savoured because you're moving on to something bigger and better.
It's kind of the myth of immortality, all that nonsense, indeed. Isn't it?
And therefore they aren't afraid of that, which is why they behave very much the way they do, because they welcome death, and therefore that makes their actions and their behaviour that more volatile.
Indeed. And they, as I say, with this promise of eternal life, the whole mythos behind this promise is it's kind of a mishmash of loads of different religions, things, and, you know, and readings that they've managed to save from when the world finally burned and just broke down. So it's a really, really clever idea. It's a beautifully written idea, and I mean, I expect nothing less from George Miller. It is exactly where I expected the story to go, I think.
As I say, just giving Nux's background, how he got involved, how he became a war boy, but also their whole philosophy, you know, why they behave the way they do, and the whole background to them, which again, as I say, is exactly what I wanted from the film, completely fleshed out the characters.
After we've seen Nux's story and his kind of coming of age, if you like, we move on to the second portion of this particular book, which gives us the backstory to our main villain of the piece, really, of the Fury Road, isn't it? Immortan Joe, played by the amazing Hugh Keys-Byrne.
Which, I'll admit, when I picked this comic up, I was looking forward much more to the Nux story, but I enjoyed the Immortan Joe story much more.
I did.
To give that much background to the character and actually see how the character develops over time. I mean, you know, Nux's story is obviously just, you know, the course of his life, you know, which is sort of relatively short, but Immortan Joe is literally pretty much from the moment whatever apocalypse happened to cause all this, how he dealt with it initially and how he built up to be this person, you know, this almost godlike figure that he was.
There is a lovely, lovely whole page frame, which is the beginning of the Immortan Joe story, which just shows, you know, it's obviously a great deal of time into the future because all the water has disappeared, all the you know, the rivers, the lakes, the oceans have all dried up, and you could just see in the background of this particular frame the Sydney Opera House, and then behind it the rest of Sydney just in flames.
Absolutely, just
and a boat desolated. Just in the sand, in the seabed. It looks beautiful. So we find out here, don't we, that Joe was originally a colonel. So
he was a colonel in the army,
Colonel Joe Moore, and he's got two henchmen, Major Kalashnikov and Deep Dog, which I must admit, if I had to have one thing I'd say against it.
You didn't like the names.
I didn't really like the names.
No, they were a bit...
And I also don't like the fact that it says...
They're a bit Route 1, weren't they?
Yeah, I also don't like the fact it says, his henchman, Major Kalashnikov, naked without a firearm. I was like, okay, I like that, I can accept that, that's quite a cool line. But then it said, and Deep Dog, his cool-headed strategist. So, no, come on, you're better than this, George Miller. But, you know, that's a minor quibble.
That's almost him writing for comics as if this was the 1970s. That's very much 70s comics writing going on there.
Yeah, I think you're right, though. I think you're very right. These guys are obviously very similar to some of the characters we've seen in the Road Warrior, Mad Max 2. Mm-hmm. So you had Humongous, didn't you, and all his cronies like Wes and what I'm going to call the S&M army, because that's sort of what they look like. And you just basically follow them going around slaughtering and raping and pillaging and whatever it is they care to do, until they finally get to a location that will be familiar for our listeners who have seen the film.
Yeah.
They get to the Citadel.
Yeah.
Which is obviously the place that we find Immortan Joe in the film, when he's got this massive expanse of water, and where the aforementioned, I'm going to call it the trolley bridge that takes people up and down.
Yeah. And this is obviously owned and run by another gang, another crew, call it what you will.
Yep.
And the story effectively goes on to tell how Joe comes to take this from them.
Yep.
Sort of risking his own life and seemingly having died himself at one point, and thus the legend of Immortan Joe is born.
Yeah, it's a really good read. It really does. It does keep you kind of, on the edge of your seat when you're reading it. And I find some superhero comics and some other certain comics don't do that as much as something of this kind of genre would do. It is very, very violent. It is very, very bloody. One of my favourite things I think about this particular portion of this book and the Immortan Joe story is that they name a few of the characters that you see in the film that you wouldn't necessarily know their names. I mean, I did know their names because I'm one of these boring freaks who bothers to read the credits. Yeah. But you get an explanation regarding the fat guy who is the people eater, and also as well you get a reference to the bullet farmer as well, who's the great guy who Max has the battle with. In the film. All in all, just a great book.
Absolutely.
A great book.
Followed up then by Furiosa,
which admittedly to me didn't find as strong.
This was the one of all of them because, as I say, this was my I didn't understand her motivation. This was the one I was probably looking forward to most out of all of them, and probably the one that delivered the least, because it showed how she did it and how she, being the person she was, managed to win over them in order to get the girls to come with her, but still doesn't fully explain her motivation for doing it. She's just suddenly made up her mind that she's going to take them, and yet doesn't fully say this is her white light moment that made her go, actually, I don't need to be working for Joe, I should be doing this. And that was probably the only disappointment. But in terms of fleshing out her as a character, it's still good, but just didn't, I think, fully explain her motivations enough.
No, you're right. It does still leave her as somewhat of a mystery,
absolutely,
doesn't it? Which I don't know whether it's a good thing.
Maybe he wants that. Maybe, he feels that that's best left to, the imagination.
Yeah, no, you are right. I mean, I must admit, in this one, I think the art style, although it's the same artist throughout all four books, is it not? It's Mark Sexton, Tristan Jones. I think they all take on X amount of pages each throughout this, don't they? But this, out of all the books, I found the first few pages of it, the artwork is just stunning.
Yeah.
Really, really beautiful. You've got the organic mechanic who's basically giving the once-over on the girls. There's a lovely scene on the first page of him between one of the girl's legs, just whistling, giving her almost like he's checking an engine over. Which you do get that sense of him in the film. Absolutely, anyway, don't you?
Yeah.
But yeah, this basically just tells the story of the five wives.
Yes.
And how they've been come to put in this kind of. I'm probably going to get this word wrong. Hermetically sealed room,
protected from
the outside, and then they're kind of then introduced to Imperator Furiosa, who is kind of their guardian, if you like, to protect them against the other nasties. Although Immortan Joe is nasty enough,
indeed,
as he is. There's a great shot of him, and you see his pustule covered back, don't you?
Yeah. And
there's also a really quite disgusting bit where they're basically the girls are all sitting around discussing his pustules and saying, oh, don't, and one of them saying, I feel so bruised, and one of them says, not like me, where he puts it there'll be no babies, and it's like but you do get the sense of how disgusting this character is, and how he, you understand what he's doing, you understand his motivation, he just wants to carry on the lineage, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But we also get to meet his other sons, don't we?
Yes, indeed.
Rictus
we saw in the film. So,
yeah. But yeah, as you said as well, I didn't find this one as strong as its first issue, as the Nux and Immortan Joe one. It's still very, very good. Don't get me wrong. The artwork is beautiful. It is a stunning.
Still a damn entertaining read. Yeah,
stunning little book, and there's it's got some great little moments in it. But it's, I think, the weakest of the four.
Yes, I fully agree, sir. I concur.
You concur. So I suppose we'll take these two next ones as a whole.
Yes, indeed. Yes, this is the Max stories, which is published over 2 issues. You have Max Part 1 and Max Part 2, that are effectively telling one big story.
Which I think, confusingly, for some people who might buy it, that's very much Tom Hardy on the front cover, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes.
It's not Tom Hardy inside the book. But that's not a problem at all. I like the fact that Mad Max can kind of be a James Bond character and can be played by anyone, so it doesn't really bother me.
What I think was, for the cover, they wanted to have him drawn to look like Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
I think for them to have gone through an entire issue, bearing in mind how many panels he appears in, and to say to somebody, make him look like Tom Hardy every time, so therefore they just went for a generic look.
Yeah.
Again, it's the storyteller at the beginning.
Yeah.
And it then goes on to tell, over about the course of 3 or 4 pages, Max's entire backstory. Even the Mel Gibson bit,
which blew me away,
doesn't look like Mel Gibson.
No, it doesn't. But
apart from the hair,
But the fact of the matter is, they have obviously, really painstakingly recreated the scenes from the films.
From the movies. Yeah,
that particular the particular frame of his wife and his kid being run over by the Knight Rider and the biker gang is brilliant, even down to the ball and the shoe. For those of you who've seen that film, the ball and the shoe flying in the air on the highway is just beautifully done.
Yeah,
and I must admit, because I read this one, this was the first one I read. It was probably good, really, that I read this first, because had I have read these two first, I might not have been as excited, I don't think.
Oh, okay. Or maybe your expectations for this would have been low, and therefore you'd have been blown away.
Yeah,
who knows? We'll never know.
Who knows, indeed.
Because you're a
Who
muppet.
knows, indeed. Yeah. This first issue in particular, as you say, it does give us his backstory. It does give us some scenes from the earlier films. I just thought they were so brilliantly done. And I don't know about you, but did you find yourself reading this in an Australian narrator's accent?
No.
Oh, I did. Especially when he was saying things like, men like mechs.
You're strange.
I am strange,
yes.
But you're the one in the straitjacket. The artwork again here, you get little snippets of Humongous from Road Warrior and his bad guy in the background. Whereas you've got the amazing scene with the truck full of gasoline getting attacked as well. It's just great, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really great. And then of course they let it down by having a picture of Tina Turner and Angry Anderson.
Indeed. But anyway, when you get past that, you get into a story where Max is again deprived of his wheels, and in order to take his revenge, ends up in quite a Thunderdome-ish scenario, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's almost like another Bartertown, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
And this, for me, is what excited me the most. Because I do quite like Thunderdome, and I like the idea of Thunderdome, and I like the whole 2-man enter, 1-man leave thing. But what they've done here is they've kind of just completely spun it on its head, haven't they? Because it's now not 2 men enter, 1-man leave. It's a fuckload of people having a big old fight, and whoever gets out wins.
Yeah, one leaves. Yes.
I love the bit of him driving into town in his little tuk-tuk, because it does give you a sense of like the cool Max,
yes.
which I remember from. And I think the only time you really see the cool Max is in Thunderdome. And he makes a few little quips, doesn't he? There's a brilliant bit where the guy's slamming on his tuk-tuk on the front of the bonnet, and he's like, "Oh, I wouldn't do that because it's rigged to blow. I wouldn't move if I were you." And obviously, he scares him into staying there, doesn't he? Which is absolutely brilliant. But for me, bar none, the most exciting part of this was seeing the return of the ring announcer. He looks great, and he does look. They've really, really drawn him beautifully. He's all burnt down one side, isn't he now? From obviously when Bartertown was taken down in Mad Max 3. So they have this big old knockdown fallout. Knockdown. What's the terminology? Knockdown.
Ginger.
Oh, you twat.
It's a real slobber knocker.
A real slobber knocker, yeah. Well, we're going to go with that. They have a real slobber knocker of a fight, which basically is kind of, as you said a second ago, it's kind of like a Thunderdome setup. But the prize here is something quite awesome. It's one of the last of the V8 engines,
yes,
isn't it? And that's basically all that Max wants. He just wants to get his engine.
But he ends up winning by being slipped something.
He does.
By somebody in the crowd, which allows him to turn the fight in his favour.
He does indeed. Now, the fight scene in this is done really, really well, and it's obviously very, very filmic. It's very, very violent, and there's some lovely chainsaw action, which I always like.
Nice.
So, obviously, yeah, as you say, he slipped something by someone in the audience, who we then go on to find out in issue 2.
Yes.
Is basically a mother who has lost her daughter.
Yes.
Underground.
Her daughter has been taken from her, and so the reason he obviously gets away at the end of the first issue and the second issue, she explains to him why she helped him, which was that she pegged him as somebody who'd be able to help her, and he needs to go into almost like another citadel kind of thing, isn't it?
But an underground one, which
indeed.
is obviously
it's an underground car park, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's kind of overrun by these horrible dudes called the Buzzards, who basically were in the aforementioned fight, but only one of them, and he's got a suit of armour, isn't he? Just covered in blades, and they're just nasty pieces of work.
And they have the cars covered in spikes. And
indeed they do, yes. Yeah. Indeed they do.
And so the second part is him breaking into this place, and we sort of see a little bit from the young daughter's perspective, who has managed to stay alive and stay hidden.
In the crawl spaces.
Yes, they sort of centre into these effectively vents. That she calls crawl spaces, in order to get stuff that they can't get to, but she managed to hide in there and has effectively got a little sort of nest of her own where she survives, but she can't find a way out. So
that's right. They make her their tunnel monkey.
That's
don't they?
Right, indeed.
But again, much like the first issue, beautifully drawn.
Yeah.
Really, really, very, very filmic. Especially a moment where both Max and the little girl Glory are trying to escape from this underground car park, and they've got at their disposal a flare. And there's a great moment where he just clicks the flare, then all of a sudden there's all these
surrounded
by these awful buzzard guys who and it's that fight in particular that I think works really, really well, because it's only possibly 4 panels, maybe 5 panels of fight, 6 panels in all. But you really do get a sense of a massively frenetic fight that's just occurred, and obviously that Max is the victor on.
Absolutely. But we won't spoil the ending.
No, definitely not.
But what I liked about it was that it was a very Mad Max ending.
Yeah.
It suited the character absolutely superbly. And to wrap the whole thing up, I thought a very satisfying ending to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And with very slight peaks and troughs in quality and storytelling, but I would say overall a great little package and a fantastic companion to the movie. The weird thing was that I said that I wasn't that enamoured with the movie and gave it 6 out of 10, I think. And I think you started your review with, I loved it, I really loved it, and only gave it a 7.
Yeah.
You only gave it 1 more than me, and I slammed it.
But I mean, as an accompanying piece, these really do.
Absolutely.
They make the movie
much
more interesting, don't they? And it is a shame, obviously, that they never got the little short animated piece off the ground, but I think this serves as a good...
Really, really good.
And,
like I say, very much recommended. And, you pick the trade paperback up for, as I say, 10, 11 quid. So, I recommend you do. If you enjoyed the film, this will enhance it greatly.
Indeed it will.
Yes,
take a trip down Fury Road.
Yes. So, the next thing we wanted to have a look at was something that I spoke about quite a few episodes
all the time.
Something I was very much looking forward to, and this was as a spin-off from the Marvel Secret Wars event that's happening over the summer, Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows, which saw Spider-Man married again to Mary Jane and with a young daughter, who we all thought would be called May, but turned out to be called Annie.
Indeed. I loved it.
What did you think? You liked it?
I really liked it. And do you know what? I didn't know what to expect from it at all. I had no idea going into it what it was going to be. I didn't, I had no high or low expectations for it, but really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it.
Effectively, what the Secret Wars series did was break up various sagas and time scales from Marvel history and put them all into their individual little worlds called battle zones. And so each story existed within its own battle zone. And the Spider-Man one is a story where a character called Regent had killed all of the Marvel superheroes, taken down the Avengers, taken down the X-Men, but what he did was, as he killed them, he absorbed their powers. So suddenly he had all these powers, and that allowed him to take more of the heroes down. And what happened was that Spider-Man, or Peter Parker, knowing that he had a wife and child, ran. He ran and hid.
Yeah.
And he stopped being Spider-Man, and he's living in this world where Regent's sort of police are the Sinister Six, all the old Spider-Man villains. And obviously certain stuff happens that means Spider-Man has to come out of hiding and be Spider-Man again. And I love the characterisation. It was so great to see his relationship with MJ.
Yeah, and the opening part of the book is really good, isn't it?
Yes.
It's brilliantly done.
It's sort of very natural. And it's lovely because this is obviously written by Dan Slott, who's the normal Spider-Man writer at the moment, with art by Adam Kubert. And it's great to see Slott get a chance to write Pete and MJ married, which I thought was fantastic. And I thought Annie, their daughter, who sort of starts off as a baby and then it goes through time and she eventually becomes a young girl. And kids like that can often come across as annoying and a bit schmaltzy sometimes, but I thought he wrote it very well. I thought she was a very believable character. She was a likeable character. Across the board, I just felt, again, it was a 5-issue mini and it told a story in a very satisfying way. Dealing with the whole situation, and at one point they discover an Avengers underground, and there's quite a good moment because you see a character with an eye patch and therefore you think, oh okay, it's Nick Fury, and it doesn't turn out to be Nick Fury, it turns out to be somebody else. I thought it was a wonderful tale, and it's been in the top 10 every month that it's come out, and people are suddenly saying, oh, when we come back, could we end up with Pete and MJ together again? And obviously they aren't going to. Funny enough, they've just announced that Mary Jane is going to be a regular supporting character in Iron Man from now on. So she's not going to be appearing in Spider-Man comics. She's going to be in that. So, and of course, Peter's now going to be a wealthy CEO of a global company. So
Parker Corp, is that what it's going to be called?
Parker Industries.
Parker Industries. Okay.
But yeah, so this is obviously the only chance we're going to get to see them together. But what a great ride it was.
Yeah, I must admit, for me, bar none, one of my favourite bits of Venom artwork.
Yes.
It is just stunning.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning. Obviously you can't see this, guys, but there is a beautiful frame of Venom sat on a sofa with two other characters looking extraordinarily menacing, and I would love that as just a big piece for my wall. It's just beautiful. Mm-hmm. And obviously Spidey and Venom have a bit of a brawl as well, but yeah,
a bit of a smackdown.
Great book. Yes. Really, really good book, and as you say, nice to see Dan Slott writing for a proper Spidey as opposed to what as he first came into it with the killing of
the brand new day. Yes.
But yeah, really, really good. Yes. Thoroughly enjoyable, and I must admit, it's kind of reinvigorated me a bit about Spider-Man.
Yeah, and quite good as well, that because Spidey had to go under the radar, they made the decision that he would wear the black costume. So when he's out there fighting, he's actually in the black costume, and there's a great moment where he gets home and speaks to Mary Jane, and of course it makes her jump and go, oh my god, because she was terrorised by Venom way back in Amazing Spider-Man 300 and always had a thing with a black costume and didn't want Peter wearing it after that. And so sort of her reaction and him going, it's okay, it's me, remember? And she, oh yeah. Just very real, natural moments like that. But yeah, just great to see, albeit briefly, Peter and MJ married, with a family, as I believe they always should have been.
Indeed, sir. Indeed. Thoroughly enjoyable.
Good stuff. Right. Anything else you want to mention?
I think I've put across all the points I need to mention today regarding said subject, and you look like you're getting itchy in that straitjacket. Well, so do you want to come out of it now? Or?
I've actually managed to get one arm out.
Where is that? I don't want to know where that arm's gone.
You really don't want to know.
I really don't want to know where that arm's gone.
Right. That's it for this episode then. So for myself, Graham.
And myself, Scott.
Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.